And it gives us an error. Set instance position block could not find an instance. Right, this will be happening because down here we're trying to position this instance, but this instance doesn't exist. It's not getting created. The problem is, who's spawning the explosion? Well, it's our bullet clones, and sadly our bullet clones don't actually know who the explosion particle is. The problem is we're setting the class explosion particle when the level starts, and only the bullet controller knows about that. So our bullet controller needs to tell its clones who the explosion particle is, or the class of the explosion particle. So in the same way that this message here, when the bullet controller tells its clones who the player is, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to tell them what an explosion is, what an explosion class is. So let's go to events, and we're going to do that same thing where we send a message with a value. Send message to object with value. We want that. And the message that we'll send along will be explosion particle. And we'll send that to the new instance that's getting created, the fireball instance there. And we want to tell them who the class of the explosion particle is. So we just right click on there and go get explosion particle. There we go. So now our new fireballs will know who the explosion particle is. Then we want them to receive that message and make sure they set that value properly. So from events, when I receive a message with a value, that message was explosion particle. And the value be explosion particle. And let's, from variables, we want to set class explosion particle to class explosion particle. Well, we'll just right click on there and go create explosion particle. That could do the same thing. So I'm receiving the message with the value, and that is going to update who the explosion particle is. So then here, when we go and create it, when we're spawning explosions, we'll now know what to create. So it won't give us that error. There we go. Now we can see it has the data it needs. Before it didn't, and it was just giving it an error.